want to go?
Yeah, you start.
All right, Brendan, let's get your first reaction to that one.
Yeah, unprofessional performance in the last 10 minutes. Wild refereeing again contributes to it, but we can't commit a foul 3 yards outside our box. It's just unprofessional. That's the only word for it.
You talked about that a couple of times, the North Carolina game, some of those kind of mistakes. What contributes to those continuing to kind of crop up as the season progresses?
Well, we have to look at individuals. We have to look at where those mistakes are happening. Ultimately, our job is to make sure that a group performs at a certain standard. And when there's individuals that aren't performing at that standard, they have to be picked out.
This was kind of one of the themes last season around this time. The first half of last season was kind of rough, didn't get the results. Figured it out kind of around this time, and then things kind of clicked. How would you kind of compare those situations in terms of where you feel this team is?
It's a little different this year because I thought we were really good in the first half again tonight. They score on 2 set pieces. They had nothing in the game really. They got on top of us in the second half, which I was disappointed about. I thought we should have pressed out a lot harder than we did. The way we did last week against Loudoun. It was just a very disappointing performance from a professionalism standpoint to just close out a game. When you outperform a team, a bigger club than you have to close it out.
You talked about kind of identifying those individuals. Like, what do you then do? Like, what does that lead to?
It leads to personnel changes, quite frankly. That's what it leads to.
There's any positive you can take on that? You did outplay them. I know the result wasn't there, but
yeah. Well, we still pick up a point, and it feels like a loss. It is a loss. But you pick up a point, and we go into the last game of the group with an opportunity to win the group, which is phenomenal. It's a great accomplishment given, our structure and some of the other clubs in our group. So we're excited for that, but right now it hurts. Right now we know we should have taken 3 points.
The atmosphere is pretty electric, especially during the PKs. Did you guys feed off that? I know you're in the middle of a lot of home games here.
Clearly they didn't, or we would have won. That's the second time we've lost in PKs this year, and that's a big pressure moment. That's an individual moment. That's not coachable. That's a moment to step up and win games, and we just haven't done it.
You mentioned kind of, again, like the individual, the personnel. You think about the penalties lost in Lewiston to Portland, the penalties lost tonight. Do those things kind of connect together in your mind? They're just sort of the individual misses?
No, I think we're going through a period where all the things that could go wrong are going wrong. And that's what this whole year has felt like. But at the same time, we just put up one of the best performances in the history of USL last weekend. And again, tonight, we should have had 4 goals. We just, we're a very erratic team right now.
You've got a lot of experience in this league, well over 200 games you've managed. How do you turn that around? Everything's going wrong. Sometimes it feels like there's nothing you do. What do you do to turn the corner?
There's 200 here, but there's another 200 or 300 in MLS, and I draw from that experience where, consistency wins the day. If you're consistent, if you stick to your process, if you stick to your belief in certain types of players and certain players' backgrounds, then ultimately it all comes out in the wash in a positive way, and it always has. Right now it's difficult to stick to those guns.
How do you drill in that consistency? Right? You talk about like you want to put in a performance like last week. Maybe you don't get 5.6 XG or whatever.
Yeah.
But how do you drill that in so that every week you're coming out with that?
I thought we started the game that way. I thought the first half was that, other than we concede on a set piece. That's such a mental letdown. And one of the smaller players in their back line scores both goals. That's a man marking issue. That's an individual mistake.